The police said there was a witness, but his statement was never recorded.
He was an ordinary man, living an ordinary life. No journalist, no investigator, no secret agent. Just a regular person walking home one quiet night. But that night, everything changed. He witnessed something just for a few seconds that no one was meant to see. The street was dimly lit, shadows dancing across cracked walls. The air was heavy, a strange mix of silence and tension. And then he saw it. People, movements, and events that were hidden from the world. Nothing made sense at first. There was no noise, but the atmosphere itself was filled with fear and control. Every gesture seemed calculated, deliberate, as if he had stumbled into a moment meant to be erased from memory. The next morning, he appeared normal. Smiled, walked, talked. Yet inside he carried a weight no one could imagine. He never told a soul. Not his friends, not his family, not the authorities. Only his eyes betrayed the truth. He had witnessed something far beyond ordinary comprehension, and speaking it aloud seemed impossible. Every attempt to explain, every effort to recount, failed. Words felt heavy, inadequate, dangerous. People assumed it was shock. Doctors called it trauma. Psychologists mentioned stress. But this wasn't just trauma. It was a secret too powerful to reveal. He carried it silently, alert to the world, yet trapped in silence. And that is where the story begins. An ordinary witness, forced into invisibility, holding knowledge too dangerous to be shared. What he saw in those few seconds became a burden for life. And that burden ensured he would never speak again. Ending line. That night wasn't just an event. After the shocking night, it made him a silent witness. The authorities knew something the world was never supposed to know. They called him a witness in the files, marked him as crucial. But when it came to taking his statement, nothing ever happened. Pages remained blank, questions were never fully asked, and forms were filed away. First, they claimed he was unavailable. Then they said he was unfit to speak. Later, the files vanished or were sealed as confidential. The system moved slowly, deliberately, and the case cooled off. Investigators transferred, reporters lost interest, and the witness remained silent. Not out of choice, but because the weight of what he saw made words impossible. Every time he tried to recount details, the world seemed to push him back into quiet. Even those close to him noticed the change. The man who once laughed and talked now seemed trapped in a bubble of fear. His silence wasn't ordinary. It was protective, instinctive, and necessary. The authorities may have thought they controlled the story by never recording his statement, but the truth stayed alive in his memory, unspoken yet complete. Every attempt to bring him forward was blocked by invisible forces. The files labeled pending or classified created the illusion that nothing existed, that the witness could say nothing. And so, the narrative was rewritten without him. Officially, the case became another closed file, one with no testimony, no living record, and no explanation. This is where the story deepens. The man who could have revealed the truth was rendered invisible by the system itself. His presence mattered, yet no one could access it. And the world continued, unaware of the silent observer who carried the night's secret alone. Ending line. The police had a witness, but the truth stayed locked in a mind that would never speak again. After the night he witnessed everything, something inside him changed. At first, people thought he was just shocked. But his silence went beyond shock, it became unnatural. He didn't speak about what happened. He avoided mentioning it even in passing. Friends and family noticed it immediately. Every time someone tried to ask about that night, his body stiffened. His hands froze, his gaze went distant, and his words caught in his throat. Doctors called it trauma. Psychologists called it post-shock stress. But those labels only scratched the surface. This was deeper. A psychological lock, almost like his mind had sealed off the memory from being voiced. It wasn't fear of the unknown. It was fear of revealing the known. He wasn't hiding. He was forced to silence by the weight of what he had seen. Even daily life became a challenge. He could eat, walk, and perform normal tasks, but the moment he tried to talk about that night, it felt like the room closed in around him. His thoughts were clear, but his voice had been stripped away. It was as if something external, an invisible force, was protecting the secret from escaping. People around him began to realize that this silence wasn't voluntary. It wasn't a choice. And the more they tried to help him speak, the more his condition worsened. He became a shadow of the man he once was, alive in body, but trapped by an event his mind refused to release. And this is the core of the story. A witness who saw too much, whose silence became his survival. His words were too dangerous, too revealing, and the world would never hear them. Ending line. His silence wasn't a pause. It was a barrier between the world and a secret too dangerous to speak aloud. The case should have been ordinary. A simple witness, some reports, maybe a statement to record. But overnight, everything changed. The files that were once accessible, lists, reports, notes, were suddenly sealed. Classified. Not just restricted, but completely removed from public view. Pages vanished. References disappeared. Even the police and lower-level officers were told they could not access them. It wasn't the law, and it wasn't a matter of procedure. The files had become dangerous, too dangerous for anyone outside a very small circle. Any detail, any name, any timestamp could reveal truths that powerful people didn't want revealed. And so, like a hand sweeping across a blackboard, the records were erased from public life. The witness, already silent, now found himself even more isolated. There was no way to confirm what he had seen. No one to hear him. He could try, but the system created invisible barriers at every turn. Requests for copies of the files were denied. Questions from journalists and lawyers hit dead ends. And anyone who inquired too deeply faced subtle warnings. Dead ends, transfers, delays. The silence around him wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. The system ensured that no words, no testimony, no memory could leave the room. And so the truth lived only in one mind, the witness's. Every night, he relived it, the weight of forbidden knowledge pressing down. And the files themselves? They remained locked, their content invisible, their threat alive. This is the turning point. The world thought the case was fading into history. The witness alone carried everything. The files may have vanished from sight, but their power hadn't disappeared. It had just gone underground, where no one could challenge it. Ending line. Those files weren't lost. They were hidden, waiting for the world to forget that someone had ever seen the truth. After that night, the witness carried a truth far too heavy for any ordinary person. He had seen events and secrets that weren't meant to exist in public records. But what made it worse wasn't just what he saw. It was the understanding that some knowledge was forbidden, and forbidden for a reason. He tried to process it, tried to explain it, but every time he attempted to speak, even in whispers, a strange caution gripped him. It wasn't just fear of retaliation. It was an instinct, almost primal, that the knowledge itself was dangerous. The more he remembered, the more he realized. This wasn't just a secret that could get someone into trouble. This was a secret that could change everything. History, government files, hidden actions, all of it suddenly made sense in a terrifying new way. The system, powerful and invisible, had ensured that certain truths remained locked away, reserved for those who controlled everything. Knowledge wasn't just information, it was power, and power was always limited to a few. The witness understood his position. He was alive, but he had become a vessel for a truth the world wasn't ready to hear. Every night he replayed what he saw, every detail etched into memory, every face, every action. And he knew if he revealed it, even a little, the consequences could be catastrophic. For him, for others, for the course of history itself. And so he remained silent. His mind alone held the forbidden knowledge, a burden heavier than anyone could imagine. The system had succeeded. The truth was locked, controlled, and untouchable. Ending line. Some secrets aren't dangerous because of what they are, but because the world isn't ready to hear them. After the files were classified and the witness fell silent, others tried to uncover the truth. Journalists, investigators, curious citizens. Some caught glimpses of what had happened that night. They asked questions, checked records, followed leads. But one by one, each of them hit invisible walls. Files disappeared, interviews were canceled, and paths that once seemed open suddenly closed. It was never violent or overt. No one disappeared physically, but the story itself swallowed them. Editors ignored their reports. Sources refused to talk. Evidence vanished without explanation. Slowly, they realized that curiosity had a price. The deeper they dug, the more they were blocked. Not by luck, not by accident, by design. The witness watched silently. Every person who got close reminded him of his own ordeal. He saw how the system worked. It didn't need to threaten. It only needed to control access. Information could be manipulated, erased, or made unreachable. Those who approached too closely would find themselves trapped in a maze of delays, dead ends, and denials until their interest faded or fear took over. This was the unseen layer of power. Truth didn't need to be hidden with threats. It only needed to be unreachable. And in that isolation, the witness's burden became even heavier. He knew the story was bigger than him, bigger than the files, bigger than the journalists trying to expose it. No one could carry it. Only he could, and even he could not speak. The pattern became clear. The system ensured the world never learned the full story. Every person who came near vanished from the narrative, leaving only whispers, rumors, and fragments of truth. Ending line. Those who got too close didn't disappear, but their voices did, and the secret remained locked, waiting. After all the events, after the files were sealed, after those who got too close vanished from the story, the witness remained. Alive but trapped. He carried everything, the truth, the fear, the knowledge that could unravel lives and history itself. But the world moved on, unaware, unconcerned, leaving him alone with a burden no one could share. He never spoke again, not because he wanted to, but because the system had ensured he couldn't. Every attempt to voice what he saw was blocked, not by force but by design. The files were gone, the leads vanished, the authorities silent. Even those who cared could not reach him, and so the secret lived on only in his mind. The nights were endless for him, every detail replayed in vivid clarity. The faces, the movements, the moments that no one else would ever witness. And yet, there was no release, no audience for the truth. The silence became his companion, his shield, and his prison. This is the reality of forbidden knowledge. It survives not by being told, but by being carried. And some witnesses are forced to carry it alone, because the world is not ready to hear the full story. The files, the events, the secrets, they exist, but only as shadows in his memory. The system ensured that the witness remained silent, and in that silence, the truth was locked away forever. And in the end, the world forgot. The case was closed. The files remained classified. And a single witness, who saw everything, who understood everything, became history's invisible secret, living proof that some truths are too dangerous to speak aloud. Ending line. Some witnesses don't disappear. They simply vanish into silence, and the world pretends they never existed.